"You don't talk much." To a quiet person, this phrase is a constant. The moment it's spoken, the room settles on standard assumptions. This person is shy, they're socially awkward, or they simply lack confidence. But those assumptions often fail when the setting changes. Take that same individual and place them in a familiar living room with 3 close friends, and they become the most expressive person in the room, joking, debating, and speaking without hesitation. This shift proves that communication volume isn't a fixed personality trait. It's a variable that responds to the environment, the level of trust in the room, and the perceived value of the conversation. These individuals perform a split-second subconscious calculation every time they enter a social space. They assess if the people are genuine and if the interaction is worth the mental effort. Psychology defines this process as social filtering. Their silence functions as a gatekeeper. They aren't lacking the words. They are simply choosing not to spend them until the environment meets a very specific set of internal criteria. When crossing into a new environment, they default to an observation mode. Instead of filling the air with introductory small talk, they prioritize data collection, reading the room's dynamics, and watching how others treat one another. This is driven by an acute awareness of social energy. They can immediately sense when the vibe is forced, when people are performing, or when the energy in the room feels hollow. They treat their social energy as a finite resource. This internal chart tracks the cost of engagement. If a conversation feels performative or fake, the energy drain is immediate and heavy. When the calculation shows a low return on that energy, the mind simply disengages. Choosing not to talk isn't a failure to connect. It's a self-preservation tactic that stabilizes the system and conserves what's left. This strategy is highly efficient. By opting out of empty dialogue, they avoid the specific type of exhaustion that comes from pretending to be interested in a conversation that holds no real meaning. Beyond energy, the filter also scans for psychological safety. Before they speak, they need to know if the environment is safe enough for their actual thoughts. Selective silence is often a learned behavior. Many quiet people have histories of being dismissed, interrupted, or having their opinions twisted in the past. These experiences teach them to be incredibly cautious about who gets access to their inner world. In these moments, silence is a shield. They would rather hold their thoughts back entirely than risk placing them in a space where they will be judged or misunderstood. This is coupled with a strict authenticity filter. They find it physically draining to fake a laugh or mirror a room's excitement if they don't actually feel it. If the connection isn't genuine, their external behavior will reflect that lack of alignment. They accept the social friction of being the quiet one because it's preferable to the internal friction of performing a personality that isn't theirs. Because this internal filtering is invisible, people often fill the silence with their own stories. They project labels like stuck up, unfriendly, or arrogant onto the person who isn't speaking. Rather than exhausting themselves trying to correct every false assumption, quiet people tend to let those labels stand. They prioritize being understood by a few close allies over pleasing a room full of strangers. They also view silence differently. While others desperately fill pauses, they find it entirely comfortable. They measure a connection by its depth, not its word count. When a quiet person finally contributes, the environment has met every internal requirement. The energy is right, safe, and authentic. They don't speak just to fill air. Every sentence is the result of deliberate thought, carrying true weight. The truth of the quiet person is that the wrong environment can silence almost anyone, but when you earn their trust and meet their filter, they will show you that they had plenty to say all along.